Religion. Religion has been a pretty big part of human civilization for a pretty long time. No, not only for its force of growth, but for its rapid development, and the modern morals that we still care about in today's society. And I am here to tell you about how the Crusades not only changed the way how we view religion, but the whole world as we know it.
Christian society and the Catholic Church have been relatively peaceful throughout a majority of history, but in the late 11th century, the First Crusade was the first of many violent periods at which the will of God was carried out in a series of holy wars. The Crusades, no matter what your opinion is on them, were otherwise considered very important to Europe. It advanced European society by introducing new inventions that were otherwise pillaged alongside recovered scriptures that held valuable information such as medical knowledge and the great works of the Greek scholars.
But before we talk about the Crusades, there's one group that must be mentioned: the Seljuk Turks.
The Seljuk Turks were a Muslim dynasty which had descended from the Abbasid Caliphate and had taken much territory of the Middle East.
They had been encroaching upon the territory of the Byzantine Empire, which was a beacon of Christianity in Eastern Europe, and therefore was very important to the Church.
And so, the Byzantine Emperor, pressed for options, sought military aid from the Western European powers to fight back the Seljuks, especially in the retaking of Jerusalem, which was gravely important to their religion. The Christian Church up to this point had never needed to use military might to achieve such a goal, and so the Pope gave a speech and offered free passage to heaven to all of those who would fight and perish in his proposed holy war. The Crusades united most of the European continent under the Christian Church to venture to the Holy Land of Jerusalem between the late 11th and 15th centuries, a land holy to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It was well known in this period that Muslim rule under the Seljuks had control of the Holy Lands in modern Israel.
Byzantine Emperor Alexios Komnenos had lost the region of Anatolia, which lies in modern-day Turkey, to the Seljuks, and therefore had to appeal to his fellow Christians in Europe to help fight against the Seljuks, who were now closer to the Byzantine capital of Constantinople.
At the Council of Clermont, surrounded by powerful leaders, both political and religious, he gave a compelling speech that would instigate a unity among the people of the council. Pope Urban II told of atrocities committed by the Muslims in the Holy Lands, which is unclear if there were any grievous acts. Pope Urban II inspired the leaders, saying that all of those who fought and died in his proposed conquests would have automatic absolution of all of their sins, which is a large part of the Christian ideal, as it was essentially an easy passage to heaven. Pope Urban II called for an organized Christian force against the Seljuk Turks in a holy war against them, as they were encroaching in Constantinople. This was the beginning of the First Crusade, which is also known as the People's Crusade, as there were many sporadic groups of people who planned to join the crusade without the official organization of the Byzantines. One such group was led by Peter the Hermit, who convinced and led a group of about 40,000 peasants, including women and children, to reclaim the Holy Lands. But his group faced many problems, as they were mostly poor and had no strategic resources to fight, and were opposed by some Byzantine forces. The portion that did survive joined with the other groups and assisted in pillaging the former Byzantine lands in the region of Anatolia. The First Crusade saw the European Christian crusaders, mostly French and Norman-led forces, march down the western coast of the Anatolian region, pillage the cities, and arrived at Jerusalem in modern-day Israel. After laying siege to the city for a few days, the Crusaders fulfilled their mission to place the revered lands under Christian control and establish the Christian Crusader states of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Tripoli, the Principality of Antioch, and the County of Edessa with their respective cities. The successes of the Christian forces in the First Crusade can be attributed partially to the lack of organization within the Seljuk forces, though it can be attributed to the Crusaders' faith and persistence of their beliefs in this time. However, future attempts at fighting the Muslims in the Crusades were not as successful in their mission, but was still considered key to reshaping Europe entirely.
The Second Crusade in the middle 12th century was mostly a major failure for the Christians, as they had not succeeded in their main mission: to reclaim the county of Edessa from Muslim forces which had reconsolidated themselves after Muslim loss and internal fighting in the First Crusade.
The Third Crusade, in the late 12th century was another attempt at reclaiming Jerusalem and other parts of the region from Saladin, the first leader of the Ayyubid dynasty and ruler of Egypt and Syria. But that venture was an overall failure as well, as Saladin's forces greatly outnumbered the crusading force. The Fourth Crusade, in the early 13th century, was another failure, as the Crusaders ended up sieging the city of Constantinople, the long-standing Byzantine capital, as a newly placed Byzantine emperor could not pay the Crusaders at which he promised to pay for assisting with raising him to the throne. This crippled the Byzantine Empire, which signaled its decline.
The decline of Constantinople led to its loss to the Ottomans in 1453 AD, which cut off Europe from the remnants of the Silk Road, which forced European powers to search for a new trade route to Asia, later established by Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama, which led to the Portuguese monopoly on the Indian spice trade.
The Crusades brought to Europe items from the Silk Road that was once sought before the medieval era. Luxury goods such as silk, colorful dyes, better writing paper, alongside exotic foodstuffs such as sugar, spices, dates, coffee, rice, and apricots. Items that improved the quality of life for the more wealthy Europeans that were recovered were things like mirrors, cotton cloth, carpets, mattresses, and shawls. Another important thing that was recovered were drugs such as paracetamol and aspirin, which helped as painkillers, which was a huge benefit to Europeans during this time period. Without the Crusades, Europe would have no incentive to colonize or to find new lands in search of these items.
Despite the blunders the Crusades had, it had brought back many documents containing information that would otherwise be lost to time. Documents such as medical information and the great works of Greek scholars had been recovered by the Muslims and were saved thanks to the Crusades. There was also a cultural and philosophical trade between European missionaries and Muslim theologians, which likely resulted in greater understanding between the two religions. There were also large amounts of trade between the European and Muslims during the Crusades, despite the bloodshed between the two sides. The Crusades, regardless of what it had done, had revitalized and united many in Europe under Christianity, sparking a sense of unity with many of the European powers as it legitimized the rule of their monarchs. Apart from the military and political expansion of the Holy Wars to place Christian control in the region of modern-day Israel and Palestine, there were other, more positive effects of the Crusades.
Another minor effect of the Crusades is the amount of influence it has on modern pop culture due to Christian predominance in the world, usually in the form of songs or video games where they draw their vision from this time period, and also has influenced the best thing since sliced bread: memes. No matter what, the Crusades were a key element as they broke barriers in Europe in many ways, as they turned it from a continent filled with small, disorganized feudal states to a place where the seats of colonial superpowers lie, as they were introduced to new technologies that helped them expand and find crucial knowledge that would otherwise been lost to time, giving them a technological advantage in future colonialism.
Through biblical leadership to spread the Christian church and the push to charge all opposing forces, the Crusades have attempted to unite European Christians against the Muslim forces in the Middle East. Though not all the Crusades were successful, they were still a show of Christian unity.